Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
Wednesday, and all of our guests today brought to you by Able Auctions, our title sponsor, ableauctions.ca. Just before we get to Bret Hedican, a little bit of a tease here. We've discovered the top 10 most consumed foods in the world, and this goes to our rice conversation. Let's just say that rice is way up there. We'll get to that later. But first of all, Bret Hedican joining us now. Former Canucks defenseman, arguably the best skater the Canucks have ever had. Ryan doesn't know about this. Now a San Jose Sharks analyst on NBCSN. Canucks host the Sharks Thursday at Rogers Arena. Bret joining us now. Bret, thanks for doing this. How are you, sir?
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on. Donnie, Dolly, good to see you guys again.
Yeah, no problem. Have you recovered from Monday's OT thriller in Edmonton? That was quite the entertaining game.
Really entertaining. I think going into the game, it was a perfect storm for the number one offense, Edmonton Oilers, goals for per game. I mean, nobody scored more goals than the Edmonton Oilers. And looking at the 30th place team, what they give against for the Sharks. So it was kind of a match made in heaven if you're an Edmonton Oilers fan. But I'll tell you what, I'm really proud of what the Sharks did that night. They came out, they played a simple brand of hockey. They got it deep. They didn't overcommit in the offensive zone to create a lot of outnumbered situations against. And they hung in there till the end. Obviously, they gave up that late goal to tie it, and then lose in overtime was kind of, a heartbreaker. They've found ways to lose games like that all season long. And, their record speaks for what it is. Nobody's going to kind of shy behind it. They know those aren't the standings where it sits right now. They're not proud of it, but they've had some moments like they had the other night against Edmonton, and it was a great hockey game.
Bret, are you surprised James Reimer? He was outstanding in that game. Are you surprised? And so much of hockey is mental. We all know that. But are you surprised James Reimer was able to play so well? I couldn't believe he wasn't one of the three stars. I know he gave up 5 goals, but he was tremendous. Are you surprised he was able to play so well given the controversy he was involved in over the weekend?
He's been able to channel it. I think he's real proud of who he is and what he stands for. I think going into that game in San Jose, I know it was weighing on him a lot. And I think, for him to maybe just internalize it and then be able to put it all aside and perform in Edmonton was, it speaks to what he's, doing and what he's saying to himself inside him, what you need to do to be able to play a great hockey game. But he did cut all that stuff out of his brain and went out there and performed against Edmonton, and it was one heck of a game for him.
How did his teammates react, Bret, to what happened on the weekend? And what can you tell us? We don't know James Reimer that well here in Vancouver. What can you tell us about his character and the type of person he is?
Well, first of all, his character, you're not going to find a better human being than James Reimer. I think he's a guy that will step on the plane, step on the bus. He's always cordial. He's a guy that is going to make his teammates better by supporting them as best he can. I know it doesn't matter what goaltender's in there with Kaapo Kähkönen or any of the other goaltenders that have been recalled and played this season. He's always been there for him and supported. But everything I've seen from James Reimer, he's just a quality human being. So I think his teammates, even though may not have agreed with them, and I know Logan Couture, the captain, I think said it beautifully that the Sharks organization takes a lot of pride in all the things that they've done to include everybody. And again, hockey is for everybody. And I think the Sharks organization has proven that and put their mouth and their money where their mouth is. And I think look at James Reimer, he just made a stand on his own personal beliefs. And even though his teammates were going to still support Pride Night and wear the jerseys and go out there and represent not only the Sharks organization, but themselves. I think, what Brian Burke said, I agree with. You're not signing up for anything, But James Reimer made a decision, and now he's going to have to live with that. But I think his teammates just support him for who he is.
Hey, Bret, everybody in this city wants Connor Bedard. You guys are a lot closer than we are in Vancouver. 2 points up on Columbus. Is there a lot of Bedard talk in San Jose, Bret?
Well, Dolly, I think there has been some more talk here as of late because the Sharks continue to unfortunately lose hockey games, and they continue to put themselves in that position where they're going to have maybe one of the better percentages going into the lottery. So there has been some talk and chatter online. You see it, fans, hoping that we would get Bedard. And, the Sharks have never had the first overall pick. I mean,
Right.
back when they were an expansion team. So if the Sharks were to get it, I don't think anybody's going to complain because they've never had that opportunity. And all the success they've had over the years, they've never been able to draft high draft choices. They've always been in the playoffs. They've always had a good hockey team. And this is the first time that they've really gone through a stretch now, fourth consecutive season where they're going to miss the playoffs. And a lot of disappointment from the fans. I will say they're frustrated. They're used to seeing winning hockey, and they haven't been seeing it. And so it's been a disappointing season for sure for fans. But I think this Bedard talk has given them something to kind of hope for.
Brett, Erik Karlsson, 87 points. What can you say? 8 years ago was the last time he had over 80. Norris Trophy candidate, obviously, is the leader. I want to ask you about Quinn Hughes. He's third in the NHL in points. What do you see when you see Quinn Hughes, Brett? He doesn't get the credit around the NHL. I think people think he should.
Well, Quinn Hughes, for me, when you talk about skaters, man, this guy is phenomenal. Skater out there, so fun to watch. The way he moves around the ice, the way he can handle the puck, his vision. Quinn Hughes doesn't get the respect I think that he deserves, and I think over time he will start to get that respect. But Erik Karlsson, phenomenal season from the drop of the puck at the beginning of the year to where we sit today. Night in, night out, he's been the Sharks' best player. What you're seeing this season, Dolly, I'd say, when you have a helicopter over the ice, or we're sitting up top, we're in the media calling the game, we see it from up above, and we see those plays that are available. And a lot of times we as broadcasters would say, well, man, that play was right there to be made, but the player down there didn't see it. Well, when you're watching Erik Karlsson and you're saying, hey, here's the guy that's open, and he's the only guy that's open, Erik Karlsson knows that that's the guy that's open, and he's the guy that can get him the puck. I've never seen a season like I'm seeing right now from a defenseman, from a player that can find the open man. It's almost as if he's above the ice looking down, knowing where that play needs to be made, and he makes it. So incredible season he's having. Yeah, for me, Norris Trophy. But, a lot of people will put the Sharks record. They'll put, maybe they'll carve him for his defensive, whatever. This guy has been good defensively, and he's been incredibly offensively. So I think for me, he's right now in the lead for that Norris.
And most people would agree with you. Hey, Brett, this is the first time we've had you on. I think maybe the first time on this show, but the first time in a long time at the very least. You played with the Canucks for 6 seasons in the 90s. Your memories of the late, great Gino Odjick.
Oh, well, I mean, it's amazing. My story about Gino, and when I was still in St. Louis, we came up to play the Vancouver Canucks, and I remember I was a little bit down and out in St. Louis. I wasn't really having a good start. I came off the Olympic team. I joined the Blues, and I'll get to Gino because this is all really about Gino Odjick. But I joined the Blues after the Olympic Games and had a really strong end of that season. Came in the next year in training camp, and Stu Grimson stuck his knee out at me in the last preseason game, and I tore my MCL. That's kind of how I started my rookie season, kind of battling back from that. So I fought my confidence, but I went up to Vancouver to play the Canucks one time. And I just remember after that game sitting back in my stall going, I can't, who are these guys? This is one of the toughest teams I've ever played against. And really you had, Gino Odjick is a tough player. And then you had Pavel Bure and Trevor Linden. But after that, Cliff Ronning and some others that you recognize their names, they were a bunch of junkyard dogs. And I'm thinking next time they come into town, I'm going to circle that game and I'm going to be ready. And I'm going to make sure I impress this team because that's a team I would love to play for someday. And sure enough, that first couple shifts, I run over Gino in the corner and he drops his gloves on me. And I swear he hit me with a right-hand punch. I thought he killed me. I think he broke my helmet in half. But a phenomenal punch. But I survived the fight somehow. And that same year, I ended up, getting pulled in the office. And they said, yeah, we made a trade today. And I said, where am I going? They said the Vancouver Canucks. And I couldn't believe that moment of them telling me I'm going to Vancouver. And, walking in that locker room in LA for the first time when we were down there to play the Kings that night, and Gino Odjick there, and just kind of walking over to him and shaking his hand, and saying, "Now he's my teammate, thank God." But my memories of him and Pavel Bure being thick as thieves. I mean, he just had his back no matter what, and I love that about Gino. He was as loyal as you could possibly imagine for his teammates, and particularly Pavel. Gets me choked up even thinking about him. It's just gone too soon, gone too early, but one heck of a man and one heck of a teammate.
He shook your hand with the same hand that hit you in the head, Brett.
Yeah.
You know what?
Yeah.
We're over time here, but let me ask you one more question. Do we not talk enough about how tough that Canuck team of the 90s was?
You don't talk about it enough. Yeah. I think the mental toughness, the pushback ability, the things that I don't really see with this Shark team right now, and a lot of teams, like it's hit for hit mentality. When you want to run one of our players in the Vancouver Canucks back in the 90s, guess what? The very next player that had an opportunity to tee up one of their players, they were getting run over hit for hit. And that's that mental toughness. You don't have to drop gloves to be tough, but you need to push back and you need to stand up for a teammate, being able to hit a clean guy just like they may have hit one of your guys. And I think that's that mental toughness that we had, that it didn't matter who it was. And that's why we went all the way to the finals and lost in Game 7, is because we had the ability to push back on teams and we weren't going to back down. And I think that says a lot about that group of men.
But you got yourself a cup in Carolina in 06 to make up for that. How long have you been doing this now, Brett, with the Sharks?
Man, it's I guess the color commentary for radio and TV probably over 7 years now, maybe 6, 7 years, 8 years.
Well, we pick up the odd broadcast. You're just doing a great job, just like you did with the Canucks and the other teams you played for when you were playing. Brett, thanks so much for doing this. This was great.
Donnie, thank you so much. Dolly, great to see you guys again. Thanks for having me on.